I knew that I was going to go to LA despite everybody saying, oh, yeah, right. A month later, I was dancing on a music video with MC Hammer. Can't touch this.
Oh, come on now. Most people don't know that, but that is so cool there.
I was like, I have made it.
Yes.
I'm
the Hammer
dancing
pants.
with MC Hammer. Oh my gosh, my dreams are coming true. And I actually thought, wow, I would do this for free, and they're paying me to do this?
The Competitive Edge Podcast, where champions aren't just born, they're made. Hosted by Brian Covey, former pro athlete turned high-performance executive and coach who's mastered the art of staying at the top of the game. He'll bring you trailblazers, industry leaders, and game changers from achieving peak performance to building an unstoppable mindset. The Competitive Edge Podcast is your ultimate guide to rise. So ask yourself, are you ready to find your edge?
What's up, guys, and welcome back to another edition of Competitive Edge Podcast. Today, I have one of my good friends, and I cannot wait to introduce Amberly Lago to you guys. Most of you probably know her, but I got to meet her a few years ago in Scottsdale, Arizona. And the first thing right out of the gate was her energy when I met her. And then she went up and she started doing fitness things that I was like, hold on, who is this person asking me to do pistol squats with her? And then as I heard her speak, and you'll hear that today, her heart opened up about grit and grace. And many of you have a story of resilience, but when you hear her story, I want you to listen in for what is your story? What have you overcome? And I actually believe you're probably in a storm. Unfortunately, you're probably in it now or headed into it. So the reality is we need to know how to use resilience in our favor. And so she's going to share her story from not only an almost near-death motorcycle accident, but how she's used that to change her career, and now has built a phenomenal mastermind. And she also has a book coming out next year. So you're going to hear about that, and then her event coming up in April next year. But guys, we're going to jump right into it because Amberly's here in Nashville, and I cannot wait to get her talking and sharing her story with you. So Amberly, my friend, welcome.
Oh my goodness, Brian. It is always just a blessing when I get to hang out with you. And I feel like we get to hang out because we speak at some of the same events or go to similar events. So I'm just so excited to be here in Nashville with you.
Well, this worked out great. And for people that don't know, like, you've been on Ed Milet's podcast, one of the biggest ones. Today's Show. We were talking about John Gordon earlier there. You've spoken on stages with some of the most elite speakers. And I would say you are one of the top female entrepreneurs that I see gets asked back, which is something special because you can be asked once, but when people are asking you back to events, like we were talking about Ben Newman's event, and you're continually asked back. Let's talk about that for you, because before we get into the backstory and things, you're out speaking now. So give everybody just a little quick snippet of what you're doing today so they know, who is this Amberly Lago and what is she up to?
I know. Honestly, I never imagined that I would be being asked to speak at events. Like, I kind of pinch myself when I get asked. I'm like, really? But I mean, I feel at home on stage. It's leading up to it that I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to put together this talk. And I can help somebody else put together their talk easier than I can my own. But I love connecting with people. And believe it or not, the very first talk I ever gave was in Salt Lake City. And it was Ed Milet, Mel Robbins, Brendan Burchard, Jay Shetty, Lewis Howes, like the biggest
A-listers.
Yeah, big speakers, and then me. And so what happened is I saw that Mel Robbins was speaking at this event. And so I went to the event page on Instagram and I sent them a DM, hey, your event looks amazing. I would love to come and support you, be there if you need me to sweep the floors, anything. Oh, and if you want me to speak, I'd be happy to come and speak as well. And they messaged me back and said, well, you know, as you can imagine, our lineup is packed, and so we aren't really looking for any speakers. But if you want to promote our event on your social media, then we'll give you a VIP ticket. And I messaged back and I said, here's my phone number. I would love to come to the event, but I really love everybody that I'm connected with on social media, and I would only really want to tell them to come to the event if I could say, hey, come to this event and let's hang out. I said, could I sell my book in the back of the room? And she called me and she said, well, I guess that was the pushback that the owner was looking for, and he's going to give you 5 minutes on stage.
Wow.
And you're going to be able, we're not letting anybody else set up booths or anything, and he's actually going to let you set up a book signing beside our table. And I was like, I cried on the phone. I cried.
Incredible.
And that really, I mean, no one knew who I was. And I was just like fangirling it and really paying attention to, like, Trent Shelton was there, and I really respected how much he was just, with all his luminous success, he was so humble, down to earth, and he was so kind, you know? And so just getting that 5 minutes, and before I walked on stage, they said, you have 5 minutes, we will pull you off stage.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, sir. And I went out there, and I mean, it was just like, you know, one thing led to another and another and another. And so I just feel blessed that I get to go speak about resilience and grit, and now how to have joy through the journey, especially as an entrepreneur.
The new book, which I know we're going to talk about. Well, let's go back to that, because I think a lot of people hear that story, they're like, okay, Amberly, good for you. Like, you went and asked for it. Where did the confidence come from for you to push back and say, you know what, can I sell my books? And continually fight for what you believed was an opportunity for you?
Yeah. I think ignorance is bliss, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't really know to be scared. And then, of course, when they said yes, I'm like, okay, now I'm scared. They actually said yes, you know what I mean? But I think that when I've always been that way, even growing up, you know, I was a dancer, and from a really young age, I knew that I wanted to move to LA and become a professional dancer. And people were like, yeah, that's sweet, bless your heart.
Good dream, but...
Good dream. And I had people say, like, why are you taking all of your stuff? You're going to be back. And I had, you know, not a not so easy childhood. There was abuse there. The parents got divorced, and my stepdad sexually abused me. And I feel like that pain pushed me into dancing, because that brought me joy, into running. I became, you know, set a record for running the fastest mile in Texas. And that pain really pushed me until my purpose pulled me.
Yeah.
And I knew that I was going to go to LA, despite everybody saying, oh yeah, right. A month later, I was dancing on a music video with MC Hammer, Can't Touch This.
Oh, come on now. Most people don't know that, but that is so cool there.
I was like, I have made it.
Yes.
I'm
the Hammer
dancing
pants.
with MC Hammer. Oh my gosh, my dreams are coming true. And I actually thought, wow, I would do this for free, and they're paying me to do this?
Yeah.
You know, and that's, you know, I got into speaking not for the money. And for the first few years, I didn't get paid. I mean, very few and far between that I did get paid. And I remember, you know, my husband saying, oh my gosh, Amberly, when are you going to start? You can't keep traveling all over the place. And I said, I've got a plan.
Yeah.
I need to get in my reps. I need to earn, you know, like pay my dues, basically.
Yeah.
I need to, and I needed to get pictures and video of me on stage, you know.
Doing the thing you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Hey guys, it's Brian here. I hope you are enjoying the show. By the way, if you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur looking to grow your personal brand, make a bigger impact, maybe increase your leads and grow your revenue, let's help you get started today by connecting up with my friends over at the Brand Builders Group. You've heard me talk about them, but if you're new here, this is definitely the first step to get you started in turning your reputation into revenue. Head over to freebrandcall.com/Brian Covey. Again, to set up your free brand call, go to freebrandcall.com/Brian Covey to set up a free strategy call with one of the team at Brand Builders, and they will dive into your specific goals for how you want to grow your personal brand. I can't wait to hear how it goes.
I think people miss that too. And from you being a professional dancer, and then also you were very successful in the fitness industry too.
Yeah.
So I'd love you to talk about that, because I think those were foundational things that built what your story is that you share today. So from professional dancing, then you move into the fitness arena, which I'm sure taught you a lot. Those industries are not forgiving and not easy.
Oh yeah, it was I was really fortunate because my dance instructor was a really great mentor for me, and she taught me more than just how to teach dance. She taught me how to run a business. And so when I started in the fitness industry, I knew how to run a business. And I then had a trainer certification preparation course where I helped other trainers prepare for their certification. And from those people in class, I'd be like, oh yeah, this one. I was able to handpick the top trainers who then came and worked with me.
That's awesome.
And so, it was kind of trading time for money. There was only so many
Sure.
hours in the day, and there were times where I was training 12 to 14 clients a day, and I was like, okay, this is in 7 days a week.
Wow.
And so once I started, hired trainers to work with me, I then could start going, okay, I had a system where they could train. And so, but yeah, I was doing infomercials. I was sponsored by Nike. I was regularly contributing to Shape magazine and Health magazine. And so that was my life. I loved it, and really had to reinvent myself when that was all just, in the blink of an eye, gone. And I went from, being nicknamed Legs was my nickname at the gym, to almost losing my leg and being completely scarred up from the hip down. And my ankles fused, and so I wear boots, and I wear boots to work out. I wear boots with my fancy dresses because it's the only thing I can wear. And so now my nickname at the gym is Boots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You told me that. And the people that don't know about your motorcycle accident and what you've been through, and you mentioned you've reinvented yourself. This was probably the biggest reinvention.
Yeah.
To go through what you went through, and you've shared this story, every time it gets me emotional because I hear it. I'm like, you put yourself in someone else's shoes and you're like, what would I do? The little injuries I've had, we think that's bad. When you almost die, pretty much, and then you almost lose your leg, and the doctor's walking you through all of this.
Well, yeah, when I didn't realize that my femoral artery was severed and that you can bleed out pretty quick from that. Luckily, a guy made a tourniquet on my leg right away, but yeah, I was coming home and a SUV shot out of a parking lot, and I was T-boned and thrown about 30 feet. And everything was just perfectly lined up for me to live. The paramedics were right down the street at the Coffee Bean. They started running towards me before they even got the call.
Wow.
The guy that made a tourniquet on my leg right away, there happened to be a nurse driving by who came and held my hands, because people weren't running over to me. They were looking I thought, this must be pretty bad, because nobody is coming over to me. And there was one lady at the scene that even fainted. So there was just so much blood. And luckily that day I had on my husband's brand new backpack, and that pretty much saved my life, because that's what I slid across, and it was disintegrated. That would have been my spine.
Wow.
And it's just crazy what goes through your head, because one of the very first things that I thought of was, wow, this can't be good. I might have to train clients on crutches for a while. That's
your first thought.
Okay, how am I going to train? This is going to kind of suck to have to train clients on crutches. And I had no idea just how much it was going to drastically change my life. I was taken to the hospital, and they had to put me in induced coma because I'd lost so much blood and my organs were shutting down and they couldn't control the pain. And so when I woke up out of a coma, the first thing I learned was, I'm so sorry, we need to amputate your leg. It's like a war wound. There's really nothing we can do for you. You've got a 1% chance of saving it. And that's all I needed to hear. I was like, okay, so you're saying there's a chance. I need to find a doctor who is willing to take that chance. And
That's right.
Man, it took 34 surgeries and months in the hospital, excruciating pain. And I really thought the worst was over. Being an athlete, you train hard, you work hard, you get through injuries. I thought it's just going to get better.
Yeah.
And it seemed to be getting worse. And that's when I went in for a checkup, and they said, you have something very serious. And I was like, well, yeah. But look, I'm on my crutches.
Yeah.
Like, I thought they'd be so proud of me. And he said, no, are you the kind of girl that likes to push through pain? And I was like, yeah, obviously. Like, you know.
Sign me up.
And he said, well, you need to stop. You've got something very serious. You've got complex regional pain syndrome, and your life is never going to be the same. He said, you need to go get back in your wheelchair. And I was like, I'm kind of like, okay, for how long? Tell me how long. I'll do that. And then when does it get better?
Yeah.
He said, no, there's no known cure for this. And I mean, even there's some people, even close friends, that they don't know that I'm in chronic pain all the time. And like, you know, it's actually kind of hard for me to fly. There's a lot of people that have CRPS that they don't fly at all because it flares you up. And so I usually, if I'm coming in for any kind of event, I try to come in a day early so I can get off my leg.
Sure.
And I mean, even driving here, I'm thinking, okay, come on, brain, keep working, because the pain, after a while, it will just start to take over, and I don't think as sharp. Like, I feel kind of slow, you know what I mean? And so I just recorded on our friend Nick's podcast before this, and I was like, I started off and I was kind of slow, and I was like, come on, brain, work.
Catch up. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but I think pain has been my biggest teacher, and it's really where I've had to learn new tools, new strategies, because it took me to a dark place where I almost gave up. And it was really focusing on my daughters, like, no, I am going to be the example of resilience.
Yeah. I think that's what people, as they listen to your stories, when they're going through something, maybe not that serious, right? But they're going through something today.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them going through that storm and that season of, like, they're ready to give up? They're done. They just don't think it's going to ever get better.
Yeah.
And you've turned it around, and almost like you said, like pain into your purpose. Someone's listening to that today going, life sucks right now for me.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
You know, something happened or they're going through it. What could help them move forward that you've learned now looking back?
Well, the thing that really saved my life was knowing that I don't have to do it alone. You know, I thought people aren't going to understand. They will not relate. I mean, this pain, I tried every kind of treatment for, and nothing was working. I mean, you know, I've even flown out of the country for treatments, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on treatments. I mean, we had a lien on our house. We had $2.9 million worth of medical expenses. And, you know, being an athlete and in the fitness industry, I was never a partier, never a drinker. And I started drinking. I was like, well, this kind of helps numb out the pain. And that worked until it didn't. And I talk about low. I was at the lowest place of my life. I became an alcoholic. I thought, oh my gosh, there's a lot of addiction in my family, but that was not me. That was not the life that I signed up for, but I was ready to give up. So I know when you're going through those moments, you're thinking, you feel alone. I did not want people to know about my pain or know anything was wrong. And I got to a place of, I think there's a gift in desperation.
Yeah.
I was desperate, and I was willing to do whatever it took to get my life back. And so in 2016, I got sober. I reached out to somebody, and I knew she was sober. I had so much shame. I was trying to, you know, cover it up, you know. And I would promise myself that I wasn't going to drink, and then the pain would get really bad, and I'd be like, just give me something to just numb this out a little bit. And so, you know, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain, you know, I needed better tools rather than drinking to try to numb out. And so I asked a friend for help, and she said, oh, I'm going to help you. I'm going to take you to a meeting, a 12-step meeting.
Yeah.
a week went by and I never heard from her, and I thought, oh my gosh, I literally think I'm going to die. I need help now. So I Googled 12-step recovery meetings, and I found a meeting that was when my husband was at work and my daughter was in school. So I was going from sneaking my drinking to now I'm sneaking going to recovery meetings. And I think, so any advice that I would say changed my life is make the decision. First is making that decision. Reach out for help. You don't have to do it alone. And you have to be willing to take, accountability and take action and do whatever it takes to make your life the best that it can be. And I think to myself, I used to go to any lengths to make sure I had that drink. Now I need to go to any lengths to make sure I get to stay sober. You know what I mean? And so I don't take it for granted. But I think if anything, man, there's so many people that are suffering in silence. And just to know that you don't have to. There's somebody out there that has gone through probably something very similar, if not the same, struggle. And when you know that, I don't think we're meant to do hard things alone.
No. And I love you sharing that, because I had this thought the other day, and it was, of course, during working out, right? Because that's when usually thoughts will come in. I thought, if we obsess over the things that will help break us free as much as we obsessed over them that got us in there. So maybe it's drinking, right? Or maybe it's going out and doing things we shouldn't be doing, whatever it was. And we shift that little bit of obsession, sometimes as a negative, but I think it can be a positive. Like, you start focusing on, how am I going to get these AA meetings? How am I going to recover? How am I going to get out of this hole that's created? And so I'd love for people to now, if you were to look back, because I listened to all this, I know some of your story, of course, right? And I look at where you are now, and I love this look back. What would the Amberly now, you look back on that, it's been enough years, almost 8 years since 2016. What would you tell your former self? What were the things you wish you had known? Because now you're on stages and people see you got your mastermind, your book coming out. But that's a lot of years that you had to go through. What are some of those lessons maybe that stood out that helped you get to where you are now?
Well, and that's the thing, it can be kind of, social media can be kind of deceiving. It makes people look like, oh, everything's wonderful.
And overnight.
And when I was recovering after my motorcycle accident, I wasn't even on social media. I mean, for 6 years, I was in and out of surgeries and then really struggling with the addiction. And so I want to first say that, I did a lot of healing. I thought I'd done healing, the therapy, reading the books. But man, when I was stuck in that hospital bed and I couldn't run, running was like my therapy. That was my drug of choice. And then I couldn't run anymore. Oh my gosh, I had to sit with those feelings. But we heal what we reveal. And so, I think that for me, I would just, if I were to go back, I would just say that I would just tell that inner child, you are worthy. You are worthy of being protected. You are worthy of being loved. You're worthy no matter what you look like, flaws and all. Because I had to really kind of learn who I was. My whole identity was the fitness girl. I was the fitness girl, and to get into that acceptance that, and get radically honest. And knowing, I knew, I remember going to my husband and saying, I think I got a problem. And he's like, well, what do you mean? I said, I think I got a problem with alcohol. I think I need to go to a meeting. And he said, no. You don't have a problem. No, I was hiding it. I wasn't I was like bottling the boot in my closet. It wasn't like I had it out on the counter. I was so much shame around it. And he's like, anybody would be drinking if they were dealing with as much as you were dealing with. But I knew. And I think we all know, we know that our truth, and I always say the truth will set you free. Now, it will kick your butt a little bit first, but it will set you free.
Won't it? That's such a good one too, because repeat that about the revealing piece you were saying.
Oh, like what we heal, what we reveal.
What we heal, we reveal. I love that. And as you were sharing that, I'm just thinking, we know before anybody, right? Like even our spouse, like you know you're having an issue. And so people that are listening, I hope they hear that of like, if you feel that tug and that pull on you, if you're faith-based, you know that's God pulling on you and the Holy Spirit, I'll be like talking to you going, hey, this isn't in alignment. You got to move. And it may not be that serious where it's alcohol, but it might just be, hey, you're just out of alignment on things that you're doing and how you're living. And to make that decision you talked about. But I love how you said, you know, that healing and revealing, because once you bring it out to light, I remember a coach telling me this, he goes, once you share the problems that we all have and you share your vulnerability there, that's it. Like at that point, like you have no more shame to it. It's like you've told someone. So I love how it just connects the dots. If you said, don't do it alone, or we heal, reveal. I love this. So I love to reflect back, because these are things that I think we all go through and we just don't realize. They see Amberly on the stage and go, and they even hear your story, but they don't know the daily struggles and the things that you have to remind yourself at this point. And so where you are now is you're shifting almost, I feel like there's a new chapter being written in your life. You got your book coming out.
Oh, and you know what? I've been nervous about it.
That's what you're saying.
I mean, because it is raw and real, but I'm sharing some of the struggles that I've been through and how I got through them. And what's so different about this book is, you know, my first one was a memoir meant to inspire, and this is like in the self-help category. So I'm no guru, but I've made a lot of mistakes that I've learned from, and so I share these mistakes that I've made, how I've made it through, and then give action steps in each chapter, so others don't have to make the same mistakes.
And you talk about this a lot, like with your podcast, like True Grit and Grace and all this stuff. And so I think people, as they get this feel like, okay, you're qualified to speak on this. Like we've shared some of your stories, but I know there's more to all of this. As you're sharing joy through the journey and all that, I do believe there's joy. I look back on things that happened in my life and often go, okay, God, you had a bigger plan. I couldn't see it, and that's why I'm me and you're God. I'm not qualified. But you're sharing this, and you are qualified in that way of now you can share these stories and inspire people. Outside of the action steps and things in there, what motivated you to write a different kind of book and to write this one now?
Well, you know what? I've had Joy Through the Journey written on a sticky note on my computer for like 2 years.
Okay.
And I was talking to our friend John Gordon.
Yeah.
He's like, Amberly, I am really good with titles to books. I'm like, yeah, you think? You've written 30?
Yeah, one of the
you know,
best.
he's amazing. He's like, you know what? I think your next book should be called Joy Through the Journey. And I was like, oh, and you know what? So John Gordon, he wrote the foreword for my book, but he also gave me the title.
That's so cool.
When he said that he would write the foreword, I literally started crying on the phone. I was like, really?
Really? Yeah.
Because he's like I love him. He's one of my most favorite authors in the whole world. And I looked back through some of my social media, and I've been talking about joy and joy spotting and how to be a joy sparker for years.
Yeah.
And Wiley is my publisher, and they sent, and it's wild because out of all the publishers, I wanted Wiley to be my publisher because they published John's books and Ben's books and Renee Rodriguez's books. And so they sent me an email, and I thought, this can't be real. What? And they said, could we get on a call? Would like to do, we have wondered if you have a book idea. And I said, actually, I do. And I get on the phone and I pitch them this whole book, Joy Through the Journey. And they said, sure, get us a proposal, in 2 days. And I had to I had no outline for the book. I had no chapters titles. And I had 2 days to do a whole proposal. And they wanted to know everything from how many events did I speak at last year? How many are scheduled for the next year? How many attendees were at each event? What was, were they entrepreneurs? Were they in the self-development? Were they thought leaders? And so, I wrote the proposal, And they said yes. And so I remember I came out of my office and I told my husband, I was like, honey, I just got a book deal. And he goes, oh no, what?
Yeah.
When are you going to have time to do that? And I was like, well, I am going to make time for this.
We're going to figure this out.
And so I was getting up at like 4 a.m. Every Tuesday was my writing day. And I would get up like from 4 to 7 and just write. And then on the weekend when the family was sleeping, I would get up and write. And I think when you have a mission to do something and you want to spark more joy or whatever your message is. I think we all have a message that we could share. And did you know 81% of people want to write a book? 81%.
Doesn't surprise me they want to. But that
1% actually end up doing it.
I was going to say, it's got to be limited.
Yeah.
Wow.
But if you set a date, for me, I have to have a date.
Yeah.
Like I have to have, here's the deadline and I will do it. But if it's just that sticky note there and there's no deadline to it, then it was a sticky note for 2 years. I needed to have the date.
Yeah, get some framework around this. It's almost like the SMART goals. Let's work through it and get it there. So let's just say if somebody is wanting to write a book. They're listening to this now. You give them the stats, which I didn't know was that high and that low. But if somebody's wanting to write a book, now that you've done it, any advice to get them through that starting and to do that?
Yeah, I think what really helped me was to have accountability. So I had an editor, and every 2 weeks it was my job to get 2 chapters in.
Okay.
And so I did this book totally different than I did my first book. My first book, I put it together like a puzzle, and it took me 2 years to write it because I was still in and out of surgeries, and I actually got sober in the middle. I think that book really, writing it, going through, it was cathartic. And so I got sober, and then I was able to like really write it and finish it. In this book, it was like I had deadlines, and if I didn't meet those deadlines, then there was not going to be any book deal. So I think, for me, accountability really helps. So whether that's, my first book, I had accountability because I went and took a writing class with Jack Grapes, who was an amazing, he's amazing. And this one I had accountability through an editor, and it was my responsibility to get those chapters in. So I say just write. Just start. Right. You want to be a writer? Then start writing. And when I wrote my first book, I didn't even own a computer, and I had people saying, "You're the fitness girl. Like you need to stick to the fitness stuff." Like I hand wrote 90% of that book and then bought a laptop and typed it up.
Wow.
So if a girl like me with no college education, didn't even own a computer, can write a book and it launched on the Today Show and became a bestseller, I'm only sharing that because anybody can do it if I did it.
Yeah, and I think anybody can do it if they're willing to go through what you went through, and you also did it during very turbulent times.
Yeah.
Which I'm excited to read more of your new book because you're in such a different season of life that this one I think is going to impact a totally different population, and it's going to be huge. As you're sharing that, I'm just thinking to myself of the entrepreneur that you are. I mean, you're like, okay, you've shifted from this professional dancer and you won fastest person in Texas in this mile and all this stuff going, and then you go into fitness, and then now you're writing a book, and now you're speaking, and people hear this, right? And most entrepreneurs probably statistically fail, right? We see all the numbers of all that.
It's hard at first.
What have you learned on that? That's what I want, because like it is so hard. I think social media, what you shared earlier, I mean, Amberly, we see stuff on there and we're like, people are just raking in the money, they're successful, we see these highlight reels, and we know, because behind stage, we're all talking, you see speakers, and to your point earlier, you don't make a lot of money, especially in the early days. Like, there's almost none.
You pay your dues, and then, you know what, it got to where I finally, with the speaking, I thought, it is hard to travel for me, and I put a lot of effort into each talk and tailor each talk for whatever audience I'm going to speak to. And so I remember I was getting ready to do my own event this year, and I thought, well, I'm not going to be traveling speaking a month before my event unless they're paying really good.
Yeah.
And so I got a call from a company And I just said, oh, well, yeah, I'll go do that if you pay me this much, you know. And without blinking an eye, they just, okay, yeah, paid it. I was like, oh, wow. I guess when you or like believe that, no, I will go, I will get on that plane and I'll be there to support your event, make it easy, you know, easier on the host of the event, try to make their life as easy as possible and make it, you know, an unforgettable experience for the attendees. But yeah, there's a lot of work. I had, years ago, I had an assistant that wanted to work with me, and she saw the glamour of, oh my gosh, I want to go to that event and get to meet Brian and Ed and all these different people. I'm like, but no, you don't see the work that goes on behind the scenes, like the 14-hour days, 16-hour days. I mean, honestly, I've come home from events before where they, you know, they want you to be at the VIP dinner, and then you have a book signing, and then you're speaking, and then you're doing a breakout session or whatever it may be. And I'll come home and my husband will be like, oh my gosh, you need to eat. Like, because
you're exhausted.
You're just going, burning it at both ends, you know, and I can lose muscle pretty quick.
Well, during all of that, that's where it gets to a point where you're like, you don't get to eat your normal routines. You're not working out like you normally do. And to your point, like the mental side of it is you're checked in. Because when you're a speaker, everybody's going, Amberly. You
don't get to really eat.
There's you know, when
you're at those events. Yeah, that's why, like, I travel with my own food. I have, you know, chomps and protein bars and my protein powder and my supplements and and you know what else I do before I travel now, and this has been a game changer for me, is I have a nurse that comes to the house and I do IV treatments for,
highly recommend,
you know, just for hydration, for my immunity. It really has been a game changer because being an entrepreneur is like, it can be hard. It's the best thing ever. And I love what I do, but my daughter taught me something important. I came out of my office and she was asking me a question, and I was like, just 1 second, I'm on my phone, I just need to turn this email. And she goes, well, if you're still working, you need to go get back in your office. And I was like, oh, okay. So I've really tried to be present to wherever I am. Like if I'm in an event, I am at an event, and you know, I had my phone on Do Not Disturb, but my husband he's got the emergency, he bypasses it. That's why my phone just rang.
That's real life.
Yeah.
You know, and people don't get to see that all the time. They're like, oh, you hear these routines and people are so strict on things. It's like, here's the real of what's happening with that. And I love that because you shared that story before, and I've worked on that. I struggle with that at home, of like working from home and traveling, like when you're there, like when do you work? And it's like, well, I don't want to go up to my office and be away. I want to be around everybody. And it's finding what works in the harmony. And you mentioned entrepreneurship being hard. Is there anything that you're working on now that you're learning to make it better or easier?
Yes, actually.
I love to know these things.
Yes. Well, I'm like revamping my whole mastermind. My husband's like, this is killing you. You do all these events. Like, when is it going to stop? You don't have to work this hard. And the thing is, I love what I do. And so, you know, there's that saying, when you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And I'm like, that is such BS, because I work harder than I've ever worked because I love what I do. Like, I literally have to time myself and tell myself, okay, enough, no more screen time, shut it down, you know what I mean? But no, I'm kind of revamping my mastermind, actually. Exciting. I've learned a lot. You know, I've had it since 2020. I started the Unstoppable Mastermind on March 16th, 2020. And the reason I remember that date is because it was my birthday when I was launching it. And that's the day the world shut down. Like, literally everything shut down.
I remember.
And I was and my husband was like, you're starting something called Unstoppable when the world stopped. And I was like, yeah, call me crazy, but yep, I sure am.
Yeah.
But I realized how much time, and I mean, there's a lot of masterminds out there, and with my mastermind in this space, from what I have seen and what I have paid and what I offer, it's wild. So I not only open up my playbook for this group of women, female entrepreneurs, I make connections. I then teach them how to put together their talk, and then I put them on stage. And
It's unbelievable.
here you go. Here's a platform.
Yep. Get your reps in.
Get your reps in. I'm giving you a stage, which, that's, events are no joke.
No.
It's a lot that go. It's like,
We know.
it's like putting on, it's like, what's more than, I went to the beach and got married, and had a witness when I got married, and there wasn't much planning into it,
Yeah.
There's a lot of planning that goes into it. And I've talked to quite a few people that are like, yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to be doing events. I don't know. I love doing the events, but I'm just revamping it. In fact, that's why one of the reasons I'm here in Nashville is because I'm talking to Coach Bird. And I'm like, hey, let's brainstorm a little bit on how I could do things differently.
Love that. And I love that you're seeking out. That's the one thing I admire seeing is like the people you've reached out to, you've connected up with, and you just keep learning and adapting. I think people they will wake up one day and go, this is it. This is my $1 million idea. But along the way, you're proof of like, well, I'm going to change this. I'm going to adjust that. I'm going to go this way. Okay, we're going to add a book in here. And I love that you've been flexible with it, because too often I see people, they're locked in on this is it. This is the group I'm creating, or I'm going to go coach, or I'm going to, whatever they're going to go do. And it's like, are you seeking feedback from the people that have done it?
And you know what? That's key, what you just said, feedback.
Yes.
That's how I even came up with my mastermind, was feedback. And it was through DMs, and I realized I was going and through Messenger and DMs and emails, answering people, getting on the phone with people, answering questions. And it was the same questions. How do I get on stage? How do I put together a talk? How do I get a TED Talk? How do I start my podcast? How do I write a book? It was the same questions over and over and over. And I thought, well, you know what? I need to just bring everybody together and I'll answer all these questions. But I'm not the guru. I'm not the expert. There's plenty of I got smart friends like you that I can say, hey, can you come talk to the mastermind and teach them this or that, So it's great when I've got really smart friends and I can go speak to their mastermind and they can come speak to mine, but that's how you grow, and it's that feedback.
Yeah, I've seen you do that. And for anybody listening, that has been, I think, the greatest accelerators for people I watch like you. I know for me and our friends that we talk with, is they just show up in these events, they listen, they learn. Like, I feel like I'm there 80% to learn and to listen. The 20% I'm prepared and I'm ready to talk and do my thing. But 80% is just the connections,
it's
learning,
the connections,
questions. And you leave and you're smarter, you're more educated, and then you can go, okay, when I go back, these are the changes I'm going to implement. These 1 or 2 things I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Has there been anything else, as we kind of wrap, that has accelerated, you think, your growth? Because I watch it, and obviously nobody knows everything, but I watch it and go, I mean, you got the new book, the mastermind you're changing, you got your big event in April and all that. Is there anything that you think's helped you accelerate your success over the last year?
It is relationships. And you are so, everyone loves you. I love you. Like, anytime I get to see you, I'm just so excited. You're the kind of person that I really get excited when I know that I'm going to get to see you. And you are so giving, and you're always so helpful, and you're like, oh, well, I'll share this with you. Oh, you need to meet this person. Oh, you got to try this. Or, oh, this help. You're so helpful. And I think that what has accelerated anything it's all relationships. It's getting around the right people, the good people.
Yeah. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. And I learned that years ago from a mentor of mine. He's like, you're a super connector. And I didn't accept that at first. I wrestled with it. I was like, I don't know what that means.
Well, you know, Rory and AJ,
Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah.
So, you know, when they go through that whole process and they give you your one word, like,
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, mine's like resilience or grit. They're like, no, it's connection. Like, you're a connector. And I'm like, no.
Yep.
And they're like, no, that's it. Your connection is big. That's your word. And I'm like, no. And then right after that, my friend Brooke Hemingway was having an event, and they did this video, and every single speaker there were like, how did you get here? Amberly introduced us. Amberly introduced it. And I was like, okay, well, Rory is brilliant. But
Yes.
maybe he's right. That is my word. It's not grit. What was your word? Did you do the word?
So the super connector was what stood out in it. And then that's where competitive edge came from. That's where it was birthed, is that competition side of me came out. And so I thought it was resilience. I thought it was going to be all these cool words.
Yeah,
and I'm
because
like,
you talked about resilience.
and we actually went down that path. And so for everybody listening, it's like, when you do that 2-day like deep dive, you're going through it. Britt was there and we're figuring it out. And then I realized actually through my entire life, whether it was sports or business, family, things that matter to me the most, it was the connections, to your point. And so I embraced that. I was like, well, then now I'm going to become, and I just accepted that identity as I went through. I was like, now I'm going to do more. And for anybody listening, it's like when someone gives you feedback like that, like I had someone speak into me last week that I really admire. And when he shared this, and he's talking about our fitness journey, you'll appreciate this. He goes, God's given you a platform. The things that you've done and the hard work you've done to get into shape has given you a platform that people will listen to you that wouldn't otherwise listen to you. But they may listen about faith or business or family. But you got there. Your ticket was because they relate to you because they see the discipline you're doing in your body and your fitness. And you've done that, where people go, when they see that and they go, okay, Amberly's accomplished these things, it is a ticket where they go, well, part of what she's saying, at least I'm going to listen to. And then they start to build trust and build trust. And that's what you do when you speak. Man, I love it because you just lay this foundation of like, here's the things I've done. And anybody listening is like, I would never want to go through that.
Well, I tell you what, you with your fitness journey, I mean, your guns are making me, I need to go back to the hotel and do some curls. I got to work out tonight because I was like, I need to get the guns pumped up a little bit. Yeah, but you know what? I think it says a lot when somebody really takes care of themselves and they have that discipline, then I do trust them more. I mean, I just do, because I'm like, I think if somebody walks into a room and it shows that they care enough, that they respect their body and take care of themselves, then they're doing the work. They're getting up early. They're maybe working out when they might not feel like it.
Most days. There's a high likelihood, I always say, there's a correlation of high likelihood they did all these things when they didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
Which means when you're working, partnering with them, doing some business venture, whatever, there's probably a lot of things you're going to work through and go, man, can I trust them to do the hard stuff?
Yeah.
And they're going to do it. So,
yeah.
Okay, as we wrap, is there anything I haven't asked you? Because I feel like we could talk and we could probably have like a 2-hour segment.
Oh, yeah, we could.
And I know podcasts are not supposed to be that long. But what have I not asked, or what is something you wish you could share if people were listening?
I would just say if I think kind of the things that we've touched on a lot is the connection and the community. I would say really do what you can to build those connections, and the way that you do that, I think, is to add value everywhere you go and walk into a room asking what you can give instead of what you can take.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, we're landing the plane because we literally could talk for hours, and if you come to Amberly's events, you'll see that, or anywhere she's speaking. I highly recommend you need to be in the room, because we talked about some of her story, but I'm going to tell you, you're going to be moved when you hear her story. Go listen to her podcast. Make sure you pre-order her book. It's coming out in January. Go to her mastermind and her event in April. I'm plugging all of that because for some of you, especially the female entrepreneurs, you need a safe place and somewhere you can learn and be around other people that you heard today, probably a lot like you. And so that's why we have the Competitive Edge podcast, because you could hear what Amberly was talking about today. Her competitive edge was forged through difficult times. And so I would just invite you to consider, as you listen back to this, or you were listening to her story, What's something you've overcome? Maybe in the last year, 5 years, that you know you need to be sharing that with other people, and you need to step out into your purpose and really become the person God created you to be. We're waiting for you. We're inviting you to jump into the ring with us and to join the fight. So hopefully this has been a good episode for you to learn, be inspired. As always, leave a review. Make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast. That's how we continue to grow this. And one of our goals next year, I'll just tell you, is we want to move from this top 2% to the top 1%. I don't know how we're going to get there other than people like you listening and tuning in and sharing it with your friends and family. So thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode. See ya.